Hello and welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast, hosted by me, Joanne Murphy. Whether you are an athlete, adventurer, endurance enthusiast, or simply have an interest in sport, you have come to the right place for inspiration, encouragement, motivation, and as always, plenty of entertainment. I hope you had a lovely Christmas and New Year. And even though we are already halfway into the first month of the year, it feels like Christmas was an age ago. How are those New Year's resolutions going? Did you set any? What goals did you set yourself for the year ahead? I kickstarted the year with a New Year's Day 5k, the resolution run hosted by Galway City Harriers, and surprisingly I enjoyed it. The post-race analysis over coffee and cake took 3 times longer than the run itself, but sure, isn't that all part of the process and the fun of racing? As mentioned in the last episode of the podcast, my big racing goal for the year is to complete Ironman 70.3 Majorca in May. The last time I did this race was 2017, so I reckon it's about time I got back into the swing of things and back into the swing of the tri life. As I'm on a bit of a break from the microphone for a few weeks, I'm trying to simply get into a routine this month and get some form of training done on 5 out of the 7 days of the week. With consistency, the word of the month. There's lots of Zone 2 training happening these days. I'm hoping the winter miles will result in summer smiles come race day on May 11th in Alcudia. I'll be heading to Lanzarote at the end of March for a training camp with Oliver Harkin, so the first goal is to be fit enough to enjoy all the fabulous cycling routes up the relentless hills against the mad wind on the island. I've been embracing many of the Galway Triathlon Club activities over the past few weeks now that I'm at home for a little bit. The group training making the sessions much easier to turn up to even on the coldest of days and nights. Having the accountability of turning up to a group session is a big bonus to being part of a club. The social aspect is as important as the training itself, and there are lots of positive reasons to joining a club. If you are on the fence about taking the plunge into joining a club this year, check out our insight on the website under the Performance Hub tab to find out why we think joining a club could be the best decision you make for your triathlon journey this year. And keep an eye out for your local tri clubs, new to tri events that are taking place all over the country in the coming weeks. Speaking of racing and goals for 2024, we have a number of races listed on the website now as well, so pop on and have a browse through the list. It's always being updated, so check in regularly. And if you are a race director, be sure to get in touch so we can list your event on the site. Before we dive into this first episode of 2024, some quick notes of interest. Our weekly Zwift spin with Oliver Harkin of Park Tri and RWB Ireland continues every Monday night, rolling out at 7:05 p.m. GMT for an hour of chat and cycling. The late join is always enabled, so you can join up to 7:35. It's a great way to kickstart the week, and it's a very social spin. There's no racing, so you don't need to be speedy to join us. Find us on the companion app or drop me a message and I will send you the link. As always, don't forget about our fabulous discount with Nuasan. If you haven't checked them out yet, go to www.nuasan.com to see their range of products and use the code TTS15 to get 15% discount online. I am going through the Nuasan CBD Muscle Gel like it is going out of stock. I simply love it. Huge thanks to everyone who partnered with us, providing prizes for the Christmas Cracker social promotions and the Fit for Christmas Challenge in December. You can check out the list of winners and partners on the Try Talking Sport website. We'll have a few more social giveaways in the coming weeks, so stay tuned to our Facebook and Instagram accounts. Now to this month's guest. Aichlinn O'Reilly, who joined me for a chat just a couple of weeks after setting a new Irish Ironman record in a time of 7 hours, 59 minutes and 4 seconds, breaking that elusive 8-hour Ironman mark, finishing in 6th place at Ironman Western Australia in Busselton in early December. The Mayo native, who moved to Perth just 7 weeks before his Ironman race, has been involved in the sport of triathlon on and off since he was a teenager. With his committed return to the sport and his professional licence secured, he is now dedicated to keeping his passion for triathlon ignited and delivering performances in the sport to the best of his ability on the international stage. No stranger to success in the sport of triathlon, the 2022 National Long Distance Champion has a trophy cabinet full of silverware with multiple podiums from his seasons of racing from 2017 to 2018 and indeed across 2021. In 2016 he represented Ireland at European Cup level, and prior to that he represented Ireland at Junior European Cup level in both 2013 and 2014. An accomplished cyclist, some of his notable cycling results include winner of the 2021 edition of the Wild Mayo 300k Ultra, and back in 2017 he was the overall Ross Mayo winner. A graduate of the University of Limerick with a degree in sport and exercise science, his interest in sport goes deeper than just his own performance in triathlon. In this episode, we jump right into Aichllinn's record-setting race, getting insight into both his training in the lead up to race day and, of course, race day itself. With his eyes set on racing on the world stage in 2024, we look forward to seeing how his season unfolds over the coming weeks and months. And if anyone is interested in financially supporting his journey in triathlon, please do get in touch with Aichlinn directly. For now, though, go grab a cuppa and enjoy the show. Aichlinn O'Reilly, welcome to the Try Talking Sport podcast, all the way from Perth in Australia. It looks like it's an absolutely smashing day over there. It is misty, rainy and wild in the west of Ireland here. So the first question I have for you is, are you missing home?
Somewhat, I suppose I am, yeah. But when I hear that it's raining and windy back home, then that sort of makes me feel a bit better about everything. Yeah, it's great here, I have to say. Yeah, I'm loving it over here. Yeah, it's a good place to be.
So the first question I really want to ask you is, the pronunciation of your name catches everybody. And as a race announcer, it's really important that I get people's names right. So I know I got it right at the start because we had a discussion about this, but talk to me about your name, where it came from and how you pronounce it correctly.
The way I pronounce it is Aichlinn, and that's based off my dad's pronunciation. So my mum found the name in a book she was reading and she decided that, that's a lovely name. But she asked my dad, because he's Irish, she's English, and she asked him, how do you pronounce this? And so he came up with Aichlinn. And that's just what we've used ever since. And yeah, I guess all sorts of bad things. So long as people put hard CH, so long as someone says Aichlinn or Aichlinn or something, I'm happy. It's if someone starts calling me Aichlinn or something, that's when I get a bit upset or offended.
Do you pull people up on it if they don't get the hard CH?
Yeah. Totally, yeah. If they don't get a hard CH, I'm like, actually, it's Aichlinn. But if someone calls me Aichlinn or Aichlinn, I sometimes leave it. It depends. If I'm going to be meeting them again, I'd pull them up. If it's a once off, I'm just like, yeah, it's not worth it. One person ever that I don't know has got it right on the first time, just reading it out loud. And that was somebody when I was in college in UL. He's just reading the role, and he's the only person who's ever pronounced it as Aichlinn.
Okay, so moving on, you have officially moved to Australia. You're about 2 weeks post Ironman Western Australia, where you set a phenomenally fast time for Ironman, which we will talk about very shortly. But how's life in Australia generally? Are you loving it so far?
Yeah, it's good. Getting settled in, I suppose. I've been here for 2 months now, and the first 7 weeks leading up to the race was very sort of just singular focused on training. There was I didn't do anything. Like, I didn't go to see anything, didn't do any touristy things, didn't go out for dinner. I think I went out for dinner once, didn't go out for drinks at all. So it was very singular focused on just training. And then even now, I suppose I had a week off after the race, but now I've started back working straight away because I basically ran out of all my money. So I did a 50-hour work week last week already. So so I haven't actually seen much of where I'm living, but for the most part, yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing city. It's so sporty. So I go cycling. You have to get up early over here because it's so hot. So we'd go cycling, say, on a Saturday morning at 5:30. And you'd meet thousands of people out on the bike, literally thousands of people, all sorts of abilities, from people doing 20k on a hybrid bike to the World Tour pros back for Christmas doing 200k rides on the top of the range bikes. And yeah, you just meet everyone out on the bike path. And then all swimming pools are full every single morning, 8 to 10 lane outdoor 50-meter pools. Training, like sport and the lifestyle out here is just amazing. You can understand why the Aussies are so good at sport when you move here and see what they're doing. Like, you go to the beach they went to the beach last Sunday and they had the kids doing surf life saving. at the age of 6 or 7, all of them just running in, going through the breaking waves, swimming out past the breaking waves, sculling water for a minute or two, and then swimming back in, and just doing that time and time again. And they're all like under 10 years old. And you can fully understand why they excel in every single aspect of sport, really.
Well, you mentioned there you were a couple of weeks post Ironman Western Australia. You worked a 50-hour week last week. Are you back window cleaning?
I am, yeah. So I started sort of this that do a lot of the high-rise buildings over here. And the main reason I started with them is it's decent pay. And I knew I'd walk into the job because I've done it so much back home. And yeah, I knew I needed a job that would start as soon as possible after the race, because I didn't have that much savings, and it's an expensive country to live in, basically, Australia is. So yeah, I started that. I'd ideally find another job in the new year, something that's a bit less physical, because I'd come home and I'm wrecked after a day's work, especially in the heat. Like, we're hitting 35 degrees last week, so if you're out in that heat and working at the same time, it's a bit draining. So ideally, I find something that's in a nice air-conditioned, inside an air conditioning for after Christmas.
Are you still on a high from your great race just a couple of weeks ago?
Somewhat, I suppose. I still get a little, like, few butterflies every now and then, but for the most part, I think once I started back to work, it was a bit of a sort of brought me back down to earth and back to reality almost a bit. It was a nice 2-month break, thinking I was a fully professional athlete, and it's made me want to relive that again and made me want to pursue that even more. But for the moment now, I'm back just doing the old grind of working and trying to fit in a bit of training at the same time.
So before we talk about the race itself, Aichlinn, why don't you bring us through maybe some of your background in the sport and how you've ended up at this point now in your sporting career? You started swimming when you were like 8 years of age and then kind of took up triathlon around 15 or 16, was it?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so I can give the long or the short story. So I started swimming when I was 8, and I was a very competitive kid, but I wasn't very coordinated. So I wasn't good at all the traditional sports that you play back in Ireland, like football, soccer, hurling, rugby. I gave them all a go, was useless at them, completely useless at them. So then when I started swimming, I was like actually able to swim and be somewhat competitive. And that's what got me hooked originally, I think. And then just the feeling of being in the water is, when you feel good in the water, it's a special feeling, really. Like, it's hard to describe, but you feel weightless is probably the best way to describe it. And yeah, so I swam from 8 to about 15, 16. And then around that age, I suppose, as you do, I started getting a bit fed up with it. I was the oldest in the swimming club by at least 2 years, I think. When I was 15, even 14, I think the next oldest was, 15, yeah, because I had Con up until I was 15. And then Con moved to Castlebar. And then I was the oldest in the club by 2 years. And then that was sort of like a bit demoralising. And Con was doing triathlon as well, obviously, at that point. I think most people know what Grand Doherty is when I say Con. But yeah, so Con was doing triathlon at that point, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Let's give that a go. And so, yeah, I just started. I did 1 triathlon when I was 15, did 2 when I was 16, and then I attended the Triathlon Ireland Talent ID Day. I think that's still going now. I think it's a great event. They stopped it for a few years, but they brought it back now, and they basically try to get people from either a swimming or running background, and you do a time trial in. I think it's only a 200-meter swim and a 1,500-meter run, and they give you points based on your time, and then based on your points, you can either get on the high performance squad. They do now have a development squad as well, or they also have regional squads, and based on how many points you get different levels of support. And yeah, I was lucky enough when I did it. I got on the I got enough points. I was on the full high performance squad, so I immediately started getting coached by Elena Maslova, who was the junior high performance coach at the time. And I'd basically done no structured bike or run training. I'd only ever swam, and then I'd done a little bit of running and a little bit of cycling, but I hadn't done any structured training. My run training used to be just, I had a 6.5K loop outside my house, and I'd put on my runners. We lived on top of a hill, so there'd always be a downhill there, and I'd just peg it as fast as I could down the hill and just keep it up for the full 6.5K. And I think back now, if I tried to do that now, I'd be broken within 200 meters. I'd pull up with like all sorts of injuries. But when you're that age, it's amazing what your body is capable of doing. And yeah, so then just started doing triathlon, and it almost fell into it by accident. Like, I went into the ID day with no real expectations. I didn't know what I was doing. I wanted to get on the squad, obviously, but I didn't know what standard was like. Started getting coaching, and from there, just 3 years as a junior getting coached. Did a couple of junior European Cup races racing at ITU, so draft legal. Did the European Junior Champs. That was a disastrous race. It was the week after leaving cert, and I'd got knocked off my bike by a tractor like the day before I flew out, and had a bit of a shoulder issue. But yeah, they're all great experiences. I raced in like Switzerland, raced in Austria, raced in Spain, I think, raced in Holland. And yeah, from then on, went to college, went to UL, and kept training when went to UL. Lynn Algar was our coach, and again, she's an amazing coach. So in Limerick, we had such a great group, I thought. That's what I remember from my time in Limerick. I didn't get many good results, but I loved training because we were a group of friends basically training together. So it was, I'm going to leave people out, but like there was me, Darren Dunn, Con Doherty, Kieran Jackson, we all lived together for a year. So they're sort of like the main group I remember. And then I had other friends like Jackie, Niall. So yeah, it was good time training, but unfortunately didn't get many results there. So then, this is getting long-winded, I know, but...
It's okay, keep going, it's interesting.
Then after, so yeah, I did a few half Ironmans when I was in third year in UL, and I really enjoyed them. I found I was much better at the non-drafting format because cycling was probably my strongest. Gym cycling was my strongest, whereas running was my weakest. So if I was doing draft legal, I'd never have to run to finish off a good race, where with non-drafting I could get a bit of a gap on the stronger runners on swim and bike. And I had some decent results in the 70.3s. But looking back now, they're only decent. At the time, it's like, this is class, funding amazing. But yeah, like now I realise I was still a long, long way off what standard was. So then again, 2018 was my final year college, and I can't even remember what I did. I think what happened in 2018. Yeah, I had a really, really good May, June. So I was in great shape in May and June, and did like Loch Coutre, which I won. Then I did Triathlete, which I won. I think I did Westport, which I won. Did Kilkee, which I won. And then I did the Olympic distance national champs in Wicklow. And that was like a freakishly hot day, 35 degrees. I think we started at 1:00 in the afternoon in the broad heat of the day. And I ended up getting like heat stroke, sunstroke, all that sort of stuff. And I finished the race. Don't remember like the last 6K of the run. My dad was up there. I don't remember even seeing my dad on the sidelines. He drove up the morning of the race and he was cheering me on. He has a video of me, and I have no recollection of seeing him. No recollection of crossing the line. And then after I crossed the line, I collapsed, and yeah, it wasn't in a great way, and I had to take a full month off training then. So that sort of set back. And I was in probably in the best shape I've ever been in. going into that, and then that just completely derailed my season. And then I did a few more races towards the end of 2018, but I'd almost gotten a bit fed up with training, so then I just went to New Zealand. I packed it all in and moved to New Zealand with my mates. And yeah, then had just like a year and a half or so in New Zealand, just living life, I suppose, doing everything I couldn't do when I was training in college, just going out, having a good time, just working a few casual jobs that had kept me a bit of money, climbed quite a lot of mountains, saw quite a bit of the country. And yeah, New Zealand is an amazing country. If you like the outdoors, New Zealand is probably one of the best countries you can possibly go to. It has everything. It's nice weather, but not too hot. It's got forests, it's got mountains, it's got beaches, it's got absolutely everything you could want. But yeah, I loved my time in New Zealand. But I always wanted to come back to triathlon, so I was still doing a little bit of training. Like I was mainly running, but I was running like maybe 3x8K a week sort of thing. So I was staying somewhat fit, but not fit for the level I wanted to compete at, I'd say, I suppose. And then I actually planned to move from New Zealand to Adelaide in March 2020. And I'd found a training squad I was going to join in Adelaide. And that was sort of like a high performance training squad. And so I went to Brisbane for 2 weeks to visit my brother who was living in Brisbane at the time. And then I moved down to Adelaide. I can't remember the exact date, but I moved down to Adelaide on Friday. And on the Saturday, the Australian government announced a nationwide lockdown for COVID. And then on the Sunday, they were like, we advise all work and holiday visas to go home as we're not going to support you and we can't guarantee when anywhere will open up again. So we can't guarantee your work. You're going to get no support from us. So go home. And because I'd just moved there, I had no house. I was living in a hostel. I didn't really know anyone. I knew the coach and he was a young person. He was like, yeah, look, I can't really offer you anything at the moment. So I was like, shit, yeah, I better just go home. And yeah, so I came home in March 2020 and came back into full super lockdown. And just, yeah, from then I started doing a little bits of training. I did a lot of running during lockdown. So I came back relatively unfit, did 7 weeks of run training. And then I did, the Red Bull Wings for Life. So I said I wanted to run a marathon in the Red Bull Wings for Life. That's like a 3-hour marathon. And I think I did a 250 marathon and then had to walk home. I got like 42.86K, I think, on the Wings for Life. I walked like the last 400 meters. I was a bit broken by that point. But that was good fun. And I got my love back for training then. Like it was good to have such a block there. I focused only on training again because you had nothing else to do. So I was running twice a day. I was doing double sessions. So yeah, that was a good way to get back into it. And then just started back working as soon as lockdown ended. And then started trying to fit in a bit of biking and swimming. And pools stayed closed for an annoyingly long amount of time. That was probably the biggest issue with the lock. You couldn't swim. And so I swam. I think I got like a 4-week block of swimming in at one point in 2020. And then they closed again. And then maybe I got another 2 weeks in at some point. And then they closed again. And it wasn't until like June 2021 I actually started swimming again. So yeah, and then just did a couple of the local races, the national champs. And then in 2022, I went on a camp in January with Darren Dunn, and I got in seriously good shape again in Aichlinn in Spain. I took out my pro license and was hoping to do a few 70.3s, and I booked into Salou in Spain. It was the first weekend in April, I think, but then I went and got COVID in March, and that just wiped me. I still went over to Salou, but first of all, it was turned into a duathlon, and running's my week, so I was hoping to get a good swim coming from a swim background. Swimming's probably is my strongest. And so there was 60, I think there was 70 people in the race or something. There was a 60-person front pack. I was in a pack of 10 at the back. And you could just see them all working together. They're all drafting. And like, to be fair, when the 60 people coming in off the run together, you can't expect them to leave 12 meters because then 2K, the person at the back is 2K behind. But like, for example, people who understand watts and stuff, for the first lap of that, it was 3 laps. But for the first 30K, I averaged 345 watts and I lost 5 minutes to the front pack.
Jeepers.
So that was a bit of a demoralizing race. And then after that, I just stopped training for a month. I was like, I feel shite. COVID, I still hadn't recovered from COVID. I tried to come back too quick because I wanted to race. And I was just feeling mentally and physically, I was just feeling awful. And I was like, nah, packed it in for a month. Went over to see some friends over in Meath. Stayed in Meath for a couple of days, climbed a mountain over there, and that sort of got me back on track. I actually ran up and down Slieve Donard, if you know it, it's a class mountain. And that sort of got me back on track and got the hunger back for training. But then the problem with that was summer is the busiest month for work. So then I was back working 5 days a week all summer. And so I couldn't train as much as I wanted. So I decided to do the hardman full distance to get a taste for what full distance is like. And I love that as well. Alan is unreal. People who haven't done one of Alan's races down in Kerry, I'd fully recommend doing them because he is unreal. He organises a great race and it just feels like a community. I remember, I think I'd just finished, and there was somebody who still had 5 laps left to run. It was 10 laps to run. And so someone still had 20K to go. And they were like, no, I'm done. I'm stopping. I can't do any more. And Alan just grabbed him by the shoulder, shoved him back on. And I don't know if you're allowed swearing on this or not, but he's like, get the fuck back out there and keep going. And he finished. And then the next day, because Alan does the prize giving at breakfast the next day he came up down and was like, thank you so much. I'm so happy I finished. I wouldn't have finished if it wasn't for you. And I finished it, and it's such a sense of achievement now.
Brilliant.
And it was an unreal race. And that gave me my taste for full distance. And then this whole year was sort of tailored to targeting a full Ironman as pro. Because I thought in the pro format I could do really well with having to swim, get out in the front pack and swim. Even when you're sitting 12 meters behind, there's a massive benefit to being in the front pack. And so I had a good bike sitting in front pack for the most part. And then just finished off with a run, like a nice 42K run.
Just a simple 42K run, yeah.
This whole season was targeted to get saving up as much money as I could in the early part of the year and over the summer. And getting to Australia, what I was saying was get to Australia fit enough that I can put in a big block to get race fit. So I was fit enough that putting in a really big block wouldn't break me, it'd make me fitter. But I was nowhere near race fitness coming over. And that's sort of my whole story, I suppose.
Yeah, it's mad. And you also won the Wild Mayo Ultra in 2021 when you were home.
Oh, yeah, I did. I did a bike race, 300K bike race. That was good fun as well. That was just sort of spur of the moment. I wasn't able to swim, so I was like, I need to do something. And I wanted a challenge. I wanted something that I would, not just a race, but something that would challenge me to finish as opposed to just going in and having a race with someone. And it was more a race against yourself as opposed to racing other people. And I loved that. It was I got lucky with the weather. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous day. It'd be a different story cycling around the west of Ireland in the howling winds and lashing rain. But it was a gorgeous day, like 25 degrees, pure sunshine.
Still a tough course though, because it is the Wild Mayo Ultra, and we know that Pádraig Murray doesn't put on easy events; he puts on hard events. So fair play to you. Talk to me about the prep then. I guess once you moved to Australia, you had that 7-week block, so you didn't have to focus on working. You were able to become that full-time pro athlete for 7 weeks. So talk to us about the preparation that went into that performance earlier in December.
I broke it down was I had 7 weeks. So I had 1 week to acclimatize and get over the jet lag. So that was just the first week. There's mostly easy sessions. I did one hard swim session in that week, and I did one long bike, and it was just a nice, easy week to get settled down. And then I had it was literally just a 4-week block where every week I had 2 main sessions I wanted to hit in both swim, bike, and run. And then other than that, there were more filler sessions. So I ended up pretty much, so every week I wanted to do one long, steady swim. And by that, I mean like around a 4K swim. So 4K straight, no stopping, just swims 4K. And the pools out here are super slow because they're outdoor pools. There's wind, the filtration systems they use cause the water just be slow. You don't float in them like you do in the sea. So I was holding about like 125 pace for that, which then in the race, I held 116 pace for the 4K, well, 3.8K. So it felt like a similar effort. So it was all about just getting that steady state as comfortable as possible. And then I do one threshold session, sort of like your 100 repeats, like off different times. I had 2 weeks of swim with a swim squad then as well, which was really good. So they were more short course guys. And so I was doing much shorter effort, much harder. But that was brilliant because it got my speed up. So that was hitting like 112, 113 pace per 100. And it's hard to do that by yourself. So that was a really good thing. And then on the bike, so each week to start off with, I think it just did 2x10K the first week of my hard ride. Then the second week was 2x20K. Third week was 4x20K. And then the fourth week was back down to 2x30K. And they were the only hard sessions I pretty much did. And then every weekend I did a long ride of about 4 to 5 hours where I'd hold for about 3 hours. I'd just hold what I call steady state, zone 2. And I think zone 2 for an Ironman is so key. So it's easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's as hard as you can go while still being easy is what I call it. As long as you eat and drink enough, you come home feeling, yes, I put in the work, but tomorrow I can go do another hard session. And that's what I did. I always did my long ride on Saturday and then did my hard run on the Sunday. And then, then the run was one long run. I came over here still recovering from a calf injury. So before I came over here, my longest run was 14K. And then I built it up from my long run from 21 to 24 to 28 to 32 in the space of 4 weeks. And the only reason I could do that was because I had time to recover. So there's no way in hell I'd have been able to do that back home in Ireland if I was still having to work. But just after every single long run, that was it for the day. I'd put on compression socks. I'd put my feet up. I'd eat well. I'd do absolutely everything I could, and I'd be okay the next day. And then my hard runs started off as 8K threshold at like 355 pace was the first one. But then I did then it was 12K at 350 pace, then 15K at 350 pace, 18K at 350 pace. And then my last hard run, which is probably one of the runs I'm most proud of, probably the best training run I've ever done. It's based off a session Joe Skipper did. I'm sure most people know who Joe Skipper is. It's 20 by 1K as 1K on, 1K floats. The on is around threshold and the float is as fast as you can go while still recovering. And I did 3:25 for my on and 4 minutes for my float. And that's by far the best I've ever gone running. And I did do them in the super shoes. I did do them in the Asics Mesh Speed Sky. And the difference they make is it's 4 to 5 seconds per kilometer easy. Like, recover quicker as well. So you don't feel as wrecked next day. You don't have all that lower limb pain that you'd get if you're running in a pair of just normal running shoes. And then I filled all them other sessions. So I then do another 3 bikes a week, another 2 to 3 swims a week, and another 1 to 2 runs a week, just sort of easy aerobic. And then I tried to fit in 1 to 2 strength sessions a week as well, but they did sort of fall by the wayside the last couple of weeks.
And what do you think was the biggest piece of innovation or technology that had the biggest impact on your performance? Is it the runners?
Yeah, without a doubt, the runners, yeah. Yeah, I suppose the bike in general, well, like everyone's on the same, like I'm on Giant Trinity, and compared to the setup a lot of people have, I'm near the lower end of technology-wise. I'm still on rim brakes, I'm still on mechanical gears, I'm still on the standard TT bars. Pretty much everyone seems to have custom-made TT bars now that they fall around slotted. I'm still on the elbow pad ones. So yeah, the runners are without doubt the biggest difference, yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us about race day.
I was absolutely bricking at race day morning. I'd never focused so much on a race, and I really, really wanted to do well in this race. And I had the confidence in myself that I could, but at the same time, it was a bit of a daunting prospect, especially seeing some of the guys there. So like Daniel Beckegaard just strutting around the place, super confident, like Matt Burton, Steve McKenna. These guys are like some of the best in the world. And then Sam Appleton as well. Like, unfortunately, Sam Appleton crashed and didn't finish, but I knew so much of this would come down to my swim start. And so it almost took me back to the ITU days where you need to have a good swim. You need to have a good first 50 to 100 meters to make the swim pack. And I hadn't been in a race like that in years and years and years. So yeah, I was very nervous race morning, but as soon as it started, that all went out my mind and just got into race flow. And yeah, so swim started. I got a terrible start, like it was a shocking start. I started right in the middle of the pack. I would run into the water and I let everyone just run in around me. So I pretty much last into the water, started swimming, and I started swimming on some guy's feet, and I thought, nice one, this is very easy, swimming on this guy's feet. And then I looked up and I realised that there's no one ahead of us. So I was looking up, there's no one ahead of us, and then I got a big look up and I realised that there was actually 2 packs quite far ahead of us. So we were in the middle, and there's one pack to the right, one pack to the left, and they were quite a bit ahead and they were coming together. And I was like, oh, shite, I have to, if I want to be in the front pack, I have to go now. So I went around him, put in a bit of a surge, and just about managed to get onto the back of the front pack going around first bite. And then was sat on the back of the front pack, nice and happy, felt fairly comfortable. And then, unfortunately, the 2 guys in front of me, they lost the feet of guys in front of them. So I had to put in another surge and get around to 2 of them. And then once I got around that, there's probably about 400 or 500 meters in. Once I got in there, it was very comfortable. I was super happy with how, I wasn't expecting to be that comfortable. I was super, super happy with how I felt in the water. We did have a Aussie exit, so we did have to get out the water, do a little run and get back in after, I think it was 2K because the second lap was shorter. And I'm super happy we had that because I realised on that my legs had gone dead. So getting out the water, my legs were completely dead, and I probably lost about 10 meters in the space of 40-meter run. Even that, I lost at least 10 meters. And so I had to put another surge of swim to get back on. But again, I was comfortable doing that. I was happy putting in the surge. And the reason I was so happy we had the exit was then second time round when we're coming out for a transition, just about 200 meters out, I just started kicking my legs loads. So I really increased my kick rate and managed to wake my legs up. And then when we got out for transition, I had no issues. So I got out basically out of water in the pack. Got to T1, had a slow enough T1 because I had to zip up my tri-suit. My tri-suit had come undone during the swim, so I had to just stop. Like, it was only like 5-second stop. I stopped for 5 seconds, and the guys are so quick these days. That was already a 5-second gap that they already had. But got through T1, got on the bike. Daniel, for some reason, had a really slow T1, and he was just stopped. I think he was messing, you know how everyone has bottles under their tri-suits these days. I think he was messing with a bottle, putting a bottle up his tri-suit or something. And so he was stopped at the mountain line. So I went around him, and then I think he just sat on me, and we got back onto the front group. And then there was a group of 8 of us for a while. For about 60k, there was just 8 of us. I know I have to admit I was just sitting in, and a couple of the guys weren't happy. Steve McKenna in particular was not happy. He had some choice words for everyone. But in my mind, I was like, it's a race. You're a much more high-profile athlete than me. You've got the results to back it up. Even if I do no work, you're still going to run faster than me anyway. So what's the point of me working and then having you run 15 minutes faster than me? So he wasn't happy, but eventually Daniel Beckergaard came around and did a super hard effort. And this is the one point of the race that I wasn't happy with myself. I wish I just had a bit more confidence to go with him, because, say, Daniel Beckergaard went, then Steve McKenna went with him, and then Sam Appleton closed that gap. And I let a gap open because I was hoping the guys in front of me would close it, but they didn't. So then I had to put in a super, super hard effort for about 5 minutes to close a gap that was bigger than it should have been. If I just had the self-confidence in myself when he first went to be like, no, I'm actually feeling comfortable now. If I go with this, I can stick with it. So I'd have been able to go with him, and I've been in a much better position. But instead, I did a 5 minute, probably like 5 minute effort, around 400 watts just to close that gap. And I think that cooked me a bit. And then I also missed grabbing a bottle at an aid station, and then I had no water for like the next 30k. So it was a combination of putting in the surge and having no water just cooked me a little. And so I got round to the 90k. And again, at the next aid station, they didn't want to give me a bottle because it was at the turnaround, and they didn't realise I was on my second lap. They were only meant to give bottles to people on their second lap, and there's still people coming out of the water starting their first lap. And I was like, water. And the aid station people were like, second lap over. And I was like, I am on my second lap. I got a bit angry there. No, I have to say, it was a bit more venom in it than just, I am on my second lap. But the first person didn't give me any water, but then the second person did. But I had to properly slow down. And again, another gap opened. So then I put in another surge for about 4 or 5 minutes to close that gap. And then about 15k later, when I think it was Daniel Beckergaard again put in the surge, the others responded, and I just couldn't go with him. So then I did the last like 75k on my own. But once I got to an aid station and properly, I went through the next aid station a bit slowly, got water and electrolytes. And once I got all that into me, I properly regrouped and still held fairly decent power for the last 75k. Like, I still lost, I think. I still lost about 8 minutes to them, but compared to what I could have lost, it was a very solid last 75k, and I still biked like 4:11. That was all right in the end. We went through 90k in like 2 hours flat, 2 hours 35 seconds. Went through 90k, and 2:11, which was my second lap, is a 90k PB for me, and it gives me lots of confidence for even a half Ironman now. Like, the 2 hours flat in the group was comfortable. Like, if I hadn't had to put in them with surgeries, if I had water for the full thing, if I hadn't gone like 40 minutes with no water, I'm confident I could have stayed in the group for the entire way around. So it's a big confidence boost for when I go again.
So just to clarify, Aichlinn, you were riding legally on the course. It wasn't that you were stuck in a Sunday group ride.
No, not at all. It's very strict 12-meter gap, leaving at least I was being super careful to leave the full 12 meters. I was told a few of the other guys were maybe pushing it, but I've been super careful to leave the full 12 meters.
So then coming off the bike, you had done a PB twice on the bike course, and you had missed a nutrition bottle, were scrambling for another water bottle, reckon you probably could have done better if you'd had more nutrition. So then how did the run go? Because I'm sure you were probably a little bit nervous about the run as you were in inverted commas weakest part of your race.
Yeah. So, to be fair now, I had done a lot. My run had come on probably best run shape I'd ever been in. And starting off, it felt amazing. I probably felt too good because my first 2K, I think, were like 3:46. First 2K, 3:46 pace each one. And then I was like, no, cop on, like, relax. It's a long way. I was like, if you still feel this good after 30K, then you can. So I just settled down to 4-minute K pace. And that was my target race pace. So I held the 4-minute K pace for the first like 21K sort of, even to maybe like 24. But then the way the run course was set up, there was like a 5K section of super headwind and 5K of tailwind. And it was a strong wind. So then it was 4 laps of like 10.5K. So on the third lap, going into the headwind, which would have been, say, 25 to 30K roughly, maybe like 26 to 31, I can't quite remember. I was dying. That was like my lowest point of the race. Everything was hurting. I wasn't necessarily running out of energy. It was more my feet were hurting, my quads were hurting. It was just pain as opposed to energy. So I was thinking to myself, I don't know what to do, because if it was just energy, I'd just stop in an aid station, pack in a few gels. But I'd been super sure all throughout the run to keep taking gels, keep drinking. I was fully hydrated. So I was like, what do I do? And then I walked 2 aid stations. And I think I had 2, in space of 5K, 2 kilometer splits of like 4:45 to 4:50, because I walked the aid stations. And then got to the turnaround, and we got through the headwind. So I started back, and I only had then, say, 11 or 12K left when I got to the turnaround for the finish this third last headwind section. So then I knew I had one more section of headwind left. And then when I passed the 32K marker on the road, I looked at my watch and I saw I had 43 minutes exactly to get in under the 8 hours. And I was like, Christ, 43 is 4:18 pace. I'm like, I can do this any single day of the week in training. Like 43 minute 10K, it's not quick, but right now it felt like I was sprinting. But I like, just give it everything. Like, I'd be so upset if it came in at like 8 hours and 30 seconds. It would probably like destroy me almost. Like, so I'd just like give it out and get in under the 8 hours. Like, because I knew I was in 6th place. I was in 6th place for the entire run. I closed on 5th maybe a minute. I think he closed on 5th by 3 minutes in the end, but he was in off the bike 6 minutes ahead of me. So I was nowhere near catching him. 7th place was going backwards, but then 8th place did close on me by like 2 minutes, but he was 8 minutes behind me. So there was a good couple of minutes either side that I knew I was in 6th place. So I had no need to run scared from my position. But then it was all about getting in on the 8 hours, which is like, it's a benchmark in Ironman triathlon. Like, just get in under this and gave it everything. I felt like I was sprinting that last 5K into the headwind section. It was like every single step, my quads were just like pins going into them. But it was like, just get it done. And I managed to get it done in the end.
You did, and you got well in under the 8 hours, to be fair, considering you only had given yourself a small window to get in for the 8 hours. So the final time on the day?
I was 7:59:04. Yeah, so just under in the grand scheme, I think.
But it's such fine margins. Such fine
That's it,
margins.
yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking like there's so much more time to be made up. Like I'm happy with that, but I like there's so much more places I feel, oh, I can get a minute here, could get a couple of minutes here. So it's made me want to do more as opposed to just being happy with it. It's like even like the day after the race, I was like, oh, yeah, that's class, but I want I want to do better. I want to improve on this, and I want better results now.
So you want better results, but you're back now working because you need to earn some money, but you're also looking for sponsorship. What happens now for 2024 on the back of that great performance in Busselton? Where are you going to go now for 2024 and what's the target?
Yeah. So my main target is I want to qualify for Kona basically.
For
I'll
2024.
put yeah Kona 2024. I'll put that out there. I felt a bit awkward saying I want to break 8 hours in Busselton, and I did tell quite a few people that, and I got quite a few looks going. Are you sure? Even my mum was like, "Are you sure? Like that's very fast, isn't it?" And so I told quite a few people, and I proved I was able to do it. So I feel if I pick the right race, like that's the one thing they have to admit. Like if you pick the right race and get the right people in the race in the right conditions, like I'm not someone that can just rock up to any race and qualify. But if I pick the right race, right people in the race and right conditions, then I feel like I have a chance. And I'm looking at doing Ironman Australia, I think, Port Macquarie in May. And that the reason I'm doing that is I'm hoping quite a few of the a couple of the Australian based guys are already qualified. So Matt Burton, Nick Thompson, they qualified in Busselton. I know Steve McKenna is currently saying he's planning on racing in Ironman New Zealand in March. So I'm hoping he'll already be qualified. I'm hoping the likes of Braden Curry might do New Zealand as well. So it's like if all the top guys from around Australia can already be qualified, then that's where you get the chance. And then Ironman Cairns is on 6 weeks later, and that's part of the Ironman Pro Series. So all the big international guys who want to come race in Australia are going to be going doing racing Ironman Cairns because it's part of the Pro Series and it's a much more prestigious race and it gets them points. So it's being tactical and picking the right race, but it's also being ambitious and saying, this is what I want and I feel like I'm capable of doing it.
So Kona 2024 on the cards, but then you're so close to Topah for the Ironman 70.3 World Championship. Will you go back down to the middle distance racing, or do you think you're going to stick with the full distance for a little while?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I'm also planning on doing a 7.3 distance and I'm looking at doing 7.3 Geelong which is near Melbourne in March. And again, I'd love to qualify for Taupo. I think Taupo is a lovely place. I've been there. New Zealand's an amazing country, and I'd love to qualify for the 7.3 Worlds. I think my run still isn't quite fast enough to be competitive at the 7.3. The times they're running are just ridiculously quick. You have to be able to run like a 1. If you run a 1:11, if you run a 1:12, you're slow, basically, for a 7.3. And I think I'd maybe be running like a 1:15. But if, again, in the right conditions, if you get the right people there, if you get a quick swim pack and get like 2 people out on the bike, and hopefully maybe one of them is already qualified, because again, quite a lot of people are already qualified for that. So I don't think I'll be able to place in the automatic qualifying positions, but it's just getting the right people there who've already qualified. You might be able to sneak your way in by count back sorted.
So it's not just about being strategic on the race itself on race day, it's actually being strategic in picking the type of race. Do you think, will you come back to Ireland next year at all? Will you race in Europe at all even?
I can't say for now. Like, I'm not making any firm plans. I have to see how this block of racing goes. And yeah, then I'll see. I don't believe in making long-term plans because you never know what's going to happen. You better know what's going to happen next week as opposed to what's going to happen 6 months down the line.
Well, that's
So,
true. And we saw what happened when you were in Adelaide and you got sent home just before the pandemic actually went into full tilt. Couple of quick questions. Have you a coach or do you set all the training sessions yourself?
I coach myself at the moment. So I had a coach up until last year, James Walton. He's a great coach. But then I found balancing work and training. It was easy for me to do it because some days I'd be working, some days I wouldn't. And it's hard for a coach. You can't be on the phone to a coach every single day going, I actually have finished work 5 hours early today. What do I do? So I found much easier just do my own things.
And what is the training session that you least look forward to?
Least look forward to? I don't know. Probably whatever I'm doing when I'm wrecked tired. Like a solo hard swim. That's it easy, actually. A solo hard swim. It's super mentally taxing to get into a pool and do like 2100s by yourself. So yeah, a hard solo swim is like hands down my least favorite session.
Considering that swimming was your best discipline when you came into the sport, that must mean that you're absolutely killing yourself when you're doing 20 by 100 solo in the pool. Do you listen to music or anything when you're in the pool?
Nothing. I never listen to music at all while training. Long rides, nothing. I like being alone with my thoughts.
Well, that's where the mental toughness comes from as well, because you're not relying on the beat of the music when you're swimming or the beat of the music when you're out running, and you're not allowed to have those pieces of equipment when you are racing.
I find it almost meditative. I find I get in like a meditative state when I'm out on the bike, especially if I'm doing like a long, steady ride. I can do a 5-hour ride and feel like no time's passed. I just go into sort of like meditative state, and it's just I sort of fully switch off. I don't really think about anything. I just focus on my breathing, focus on my legs, and try to get into a flow state, because you can practice getting into a flow state, and that's the state you want to be in on race day. Then is like you're not having to think about what's going on, you just do.
When you're at home, do you meditate?
Not at all. I find that too much then. But I think I do enough of it out training. I do enough training that I get my fill in there.
Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 audience questions. The first one of those is from Damien Oliver, and he asks, throughout your training for the latest Ironman, what did your recovery and stretching/mobility routine look like?
Recovery was basically just eat as much as possible. I was training about like 25 hours a week or so. And I feel when you're training that amount, you just need to get as much food as you possibly can in. Like eat well. I am also vegetarian, so you don't get massive amounts of calories from meat. Meat's quite calorie dense. So I eat a lot of vegetables, fruit, beans, peas, that sort of stuff. Cereal's great. So before training, like even before I run like Cocoa Pops or something, just high in sugar, high in carbs. So eating is the number one, and then sleeping. I was sleeping probably like 9 hours a night, getting a nap in the daytime. That's what's amazing about training full time, is you get a nap in the daytime. So that all adds up. And then very little stretching and mobility. I don't think it's hugely important. So long as you're not tightening up anywhere. As soon as I felt I was stiffening anywhere, I'd stretch. So I got, at one point, I did get my glutes tighten up quite a lot. And so I had to spend about a week stretching that 3 times a day, just making sure that loosened out properly. And this is what quite a lot of the research is saying now. Stretching actually doesn't have much benefit. If you're staying loose enough for your sport, its strength is the biggest thing. So doing a lot of strength exercises stretch your muscle at the same time. So say you do RDL. Say you're doing a single leg RDL, because I was doing all bodyweight stuff because I wasn't in the gym. So a single leg RDL is both stretching your hamstring while strengthening it, just putting it under load at the same time. So that's much more important than just sitting on the floor, leaning forward, trying to touch your toes and stretch your hamstring. And that's what quite a lot of the research is saying. So I studied sports and exercise science in college, and I tried to keep up with some of the research trends that are out there. And I have quite a few friends who are physios as well, and who have recently graduated, and they're saying that that's the latest research is now. There's no need, unless like you'd need to be as flexible as your sport demands.
Mm-hmm.
And so something like triathlon, you're all single plane. So swimming, you obviously need flexible shoulders, but I have that from my years of swimming anyway. You don't need flexible hips, you don't need any of that. So same with cycling, you don't need flexible hips. Same with running, you don't need flexible hips. So I've spent years working on increasing my hip flexibility, and it did nothing for me. Made no benefit whatsoever. And then I'm like, no need. Just as long as I'm not tightening up anywhere and I can do whatever I need to do comfortably, that's good enough.
And I guess that's the key as well, that whilst the hip flexibility mightn't be something that you need to work on, for somebody else, it might be hugely important for them. So it's all very much individualized.
And if you're doing a slightly different sport, so say, even if you run, like say, even cross country, you probably need more hip flexibility because you're twisting and turning. Whereas Ironman running tend to be on fairly like straightforward courses. So you don't need that extra mobility that you would if you're doing any slightly different sport.
Niall Cornan asks, did you remember to eat on the bike after your spectacular blow up in Tyrone?
I did, yeah. Yeah, that was a pitch. I've never felt so miserable on the bike last year in Tyrone. I think I went from, what was it, after 80k, I think I was averaging like 41.5k an hour. And then my last 10k, I barely averaged 30k an hour in Tyrone last year. And Niall came flying past me as if it wasn't moving. Well, it wasn't moving really. But yeah, I managed to get the calories in me this time. Gels, yeah, just loads and loads of gels.
And then Niall Foley says, I used to train and live with Aichlinn in college and we'd be the best of pals. Ask him who was the best training partner he trained with over his years in Limerick and who was the most entertaining.
Okay, this will be good. How many bridges can I burn now here? Let's see how many people I can insult. Best training partner. I suppose I like training with Darren Dunn. Like, I have to say, I like training with Darren Dunn. I don't know if that's because Darren can often be quite lazy in training, and so it's not super difficult all the time. That's throwing a few digs. But yeah, I wouldn't say I have a favourite. Like, how training group was the best. There wasn't having one training partners. Like, I remember Darren Dunn, Niall Foley, and Jack Malloy lived together for a summer. And we used to just, on our easy days, we'd cycle to Killaloe, which is like a 45k loop. We'd stop, get some ice cream and get coffee. And then we sort of like race each other back, just constantly attacking each other on the way back. And that was just so much fun. That's probably like the most fun I've had in training. It wasn't necessarily the most specific, and I don't know how beneficial it was, but it was just super enjoyable training. So yeah, I'd say yeah, that group was probably the most fun. And then you'd have Kieran Jackson and Condotty as other training partners who were probably, I think because they were at a slightly higher level than me, we were sort of a bit more competitive with each other, I suppose. But we still had really good fun training. I think Con was always like slightly out of my league, other than swimming. And I suppose running he was out of my league, yeah, but we still a good fun training with him, but it always felt a bit like, yeah, he's best than Michelle.
And so as we come to the end of our chat, is Busselton the highlight of your sporting career to date?
Yeah, I'd say definitely, yeah. Without a doubt. The first time I feel I've truly shown my full potential in a race that matters. Like, I feel I've had other races that I've performed super well in, but they haven't had necessarily the strongest field and I've won them comfortably. But this is the first time I've performed as best as I possibly could against a super strong field in an international race that properly matters. Like.
And so then my final question, what's the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal, basically see how good I can get. The ultimate goal is to feel I've gotten as good as I possibly can get. So it's more a personal thing than what I want to achieve, because I believe if I get as good as I possibly can get, then I'll be competitive. So the competitive side sort of is, what's the word? It's sort of like seen to automatically by me achieving like my peak fitness almost. Like that's, yeah.
It's like asking you how long is a piece of string, because I'm sure the goalposts will shift as you get stronger and fitter and faster.
There's like competitive goals, and then there's like personal goals. So like obviously competitive goals are racing Kona. Like that's number one. But then like, why stop at just racing Kona? Why not like be competitive in Kona? And then you don't know, it's like Kona's only guaranteed to happen next year in 2026. So you don't know where they're going to be in like 2027 or 2028. And who knows, maybe they'll bring from a nice cold country for once, and they'll let all the Europeans and Americans freeze themselves and pack them up in Norway or somewhere. I think would be a good idea. Like 11.
Aichlinn, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. We've been on a serious adventure there, from your background to your racing in Busselton. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and the very best of luck with everything.
Thanks a million, Joanne. Thanks for having me on. I've had a great time.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can get in touch with any feedback or guest suggestions by emailing me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. If you would like to hear more great episodes of the podcast, be sure to check them out on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow all of our activities and podcasts on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram. And if you have any feedback or guest suggestions, please do email me on trytalkingsport@gmail.com. I really would love to hear from you. Until next time, thanks for listening, stay safe, keep smiling, and remember to look for fun and adventure in every day.